As we celebrate America's independence, we owe a debt of gratitude to those who served in the military. Retired Major Stephen Snyder-Hill served 30 years in the Army, including in 2 Mideast wars. But the freedoms he fought to protect, he could not always enjoy because he was a gay man in uniform. Just last month, this decorated veteran received an award from the city of Columbus for his contributions to the gay community and the city. He became one of the first to challenge the so-called don't ask, don't tell policy. He did it in a way that thrust him into the national spotlight, and he came to terms with his sexuality on the battlefield.
We were in a firefight in Iraq, and there were shells hitting on the left of us and on the right of us, and in artillery that means that they're honing in on you. And I was a young kid, I was barely 19 years old or whatever, and I remember closing my eyes and actually thinking I was going to die. I thought that was it. This next shell that hits is going to kill me. And I remember just instantly just closing my eyes, and then I opened them and I saw a picture of my brother and his girlfriend that I had pasted up in my vehicle, and I instantly just started to cry because I knew right then that I could die and I would never have been able to love somebody. And that was something that hit me, and I thought, if I get out of this alive, I'm never ever going to live inauthentically again.
Little did Stephen Snyder-Hill know that living authentically would change everything, that he would go from soldier to activist and kick open a door for countless gay people in the military. After serving in Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and Kuwait in the first Gulf War, he came home and earned a degree at Ohio State. But he was back on active duty by 2001. In 2010, back on the front line in Iraq. And because of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, back in the closet, knowing that his sexuality could get him kicked out of the Army.
Before, if you were gay and people knew, they might not go after you. It was just kind of like a unknown thing, but this gave them a green light to do that. So I knew going back in was going to be really rough. So Don't Ask, Don't Tell made it worse. It absolutely did. It was not a good policy when we look at it retrospectively. At the time we thought, wow, gay people can serve, but we also didn't realize, well, we can get kicked out now too. And I think that it was really scary going back in. And
one of the things that you have said to me that is heartbreaking, he is your spouse. He was the love of your life. You had to hide your goodbyes when you were going off to war.
Yeah,
what was that like?
We hid under an escalator and we're crying, and all the spouses were out and they were all sharing information, and they were all saying, you know, we can support each other. And Josh and I were like little rats hiding under an escalator bawling. And when we came out, one of my soldier friends came up and he saw, and they said, I told him he was my brother.
But Don't Ask, Don't Tell officially ended in September of 2011, the same month that Republican presidential candidates took the stage for a debate and heard a recorded question from the front lines of Iraq.
Hello, I'm a soldier currently serving in Iraq, and I have a question for the Republican candidates. In 2010, when I was deployed to Iraq, I had to lie about who I was because I'm a gay soldier, and I didn't want to lose my job. My question is, under one of your presidencies, do you intend to circumvent the progress that's been made for gay and lesbian soldiers in the military?
The GOP audience booed Stephen Snyder-Hill as he served on the front lines, but enthusiastically cheered for Rick Santorum when he said gay soldiers should go back in the closet and keep their sex lives to themselves.
It wasn't the couple people that, you know, were disrespectful and booed. It was everybody that agreed with him that people that are serving their country are asking for a special privilege to serve their country just by being who they are. That's the thing that hurts, is that entire audience was cheering. Some of them stood up to cheer for that answer. In 1 second, Rick Santorum reduced my entire career in the military to sex. My entire decorated career to sex. And that, I can't tell you how awful that is, because it's not.
Snyder-Hill says it's about living your truth, about housing, medical, and survivor benefits for the families of gay soldiers.
But Snyder-Hill was now fully out. His question, his face, his name on national TV. He Skyped the debate with his husband.
I was up at 5 a.m., he was watching at 9 p.m., and our reactions were completely opposite because Josh was doing cartwheels, screaming when the question came on, and I was just like, what have I done? I thought maybe nobody saw it.
But in the chow line that morning, he heard his own voice blasting on television sets turned to morning news programs. Then a soldier walked up close to him and said, "Are you signing autographs?"
And I was like, it's a little awkward. And he's like, he grabs my hand and he rubs it. And I said, I was kind of like, you know, my personal space. And he said, your gaze isn't going to rub off on me. And I looked at him and I thought, what? And he said, my brother and his partner got married last year. And out of all the people in the world, I thought, this is an ally.
NBC was the first to request an interview with the gay soldier willing to question GOP candidates. And Snyder-Hill had to meet with a PIO.
And I thought, I am in such trouble. I don't know what this guy's going to say to me. I explained to him about all these little things that had happened in my life. And so he said, well, let's get lunch. And so we kept talking. I was like, he really seems interested in me. In these stories. And so about halfway through the day, he said, Captain Hill, he said, I have to confess to you, my son just came out to me. He's 21 years old. And he said, talking to you and hearing these stories makes me feel like I understand my son better. And I said, I'm going to blow your mind right now. I said, society programs us about what gay people are, about who they are. I had to unlearn everything society taught me about myself before I knew who I was. That PIO did tell me, he said, you know, you can go home and you can do one of two things. He goes, the news will fizzle out. He's like, you can let this go. He said, or you can tell your story.
He's been sharing his story ever since in a book called Soldier of Change, on the speaking circuit with Josh, in support of gay military families. They also took a busload of gay couples to Washington, where they got married on the steps of the Supreme Court. He and Josh got married at the grave of a Vietnam soldier, Leonard Matlovich, who was kicked out of the military after publicly identifying as gay. His headstone reads, "The military gave me a medal for killing 2 men and a discharge for loving 1."
What do you hope young people take from the example you set?
That any one of them can stand up and they can change the world. And if they don't believe that they have the power to do that, then I would say trust the power of your voice, because they can.
And he is still an activist. He's one of the lead plaintiffs in the OSU case involving Dr. Strauss. And he has never regretted the fact that he's learned to use his voice.
Yeah, an incredible story for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for your service.
And we thank both of the families we talked to tonight for sharing their stories. We thank you and your family for being with us tonight for this presentation of Red, White, and Boom.
NBC4 11 is next.